I thought what the world really needs is another YouTube photography channel. I love YouTube. I've only discovered it maybe a couple of years ago, but it's much better than the TV. I subscribe mostly to photography channels and art channels and maybe some news coverage, documentaries and stuff like that. But the photography channels I find quite odd. There's an awful lot of reviews, a lot of talking about equipment, cameras, lenses, flashes. There's an awful lot of kind of gear porn, I suppose you could call it. There's also a lot of technical information, which is good. Basic stuff, how to take a photograph, information about apertures, f-stops, ISOs, shutter speeds, how to sync your strobe lights, etc. And all of that is fine. I love camera reviews. I love seeing all this stuff that I'll never be able to afford. But the thing is with photography is that it has a foot in two camps. Yes, on the one side there's the mechanical aspect of it, the how to take a photograph, how to get the correct exposure. The camera is a machine, and machines, you need to know how to operate them. So that's all well and good. But there's another side to it, which is art. What makes a good photograph? What is worth looking at? What is worth taking a photograph? What's worth recording? And that's hardly ever discussed. I'm amazed that there's all these photography channels, but very few people actually talk about photographers, the great photographers in history. Very rarely show you, the great photographs. Can you imagine a fine art channel, a channel about painting, that never discuss artists, that never mention the great painters in history, that never show you paintings, that only discuss different types of paint, how to mix paint, the different types of brushes, different types of paper. Now it's all useful, of course, you need to know that stuff, but isn't it odd that the real nitty-gritty of creating art is hardly ever discussed, and that's because it's difficult. And it's also because a lot of the photographers on YouTube, it seems to me, come from a very commercial background. Almost everybody is a wedding photographer, which to me is the worst job in the world. It's very well paid, and it should be, because you need to pay for the hospital bills after you get the stomach ulcer. But I'm certainly not temperamentally suited to that. Also, like real estate photography, advertising photography, commercial portraiture. These are service providers. They're commercial. They're commercial photographers. Nothing to do with art, and so it's not really a surprise that they don't discuss art, and that's a shame. Because for me, photography, what I'm interested in, is the photographic aspect of it. So this channel is absolutely not for people who want to discover or want to learn how to take a photograph, all the technical aspects of it. There are some wonderful channels about that. One of my favourites is Philip McCordle, and what he doesn't know about the technical aspects of photography isn't worth knowing. He's a retired advertising. I think he was in most of his life. For I think he said 50 years or something like that. He was a very commercial photographer in advertising, specialising in vehicles. But he can do anything. And that channel, Philip McCordle, is just a mine of fantastic information. Also, there's another Brit, Mike Brown, who again explains the basics of photography in a really simple but quite profound way, and he's wonderful. So I'm not going to do any of that. And in fact, there's a lot about the technical aspects of photography I don't know. I can get an exposure. I can get the right exposure. But that's not really my interest. I come from a fine art background. I'm a painter. And so photography, I suppose, is my secondary interest. And it's interesting why I decided to create this channel about photography rather than painting. And I think it's because painting is too close to me, really. It's such a huge thing. Well, so is photography such a huge subject. But I think I'm more distant from photography. I'm more kind of objective about it. And there's more things that I want to know and need to know about photography. Whereas painting, it's a bit too close to the bone. And who knows, this channel might develop and move in a different way. Maybe I'll bring in the painting more later on. But initially I want to concentrate on the still image of photography. So, as I say, my background is in fine art. I've been painting and drawing, I don't know, since I was 5 or 6, and I've never stopped. I've done, well, over 10 years of formal fine art and design education. And, yeah, maybe another 30 years informal fine art education, including photography, of course. So that's what I bring to the party, I think, because the technical aspects of cameras I'm not particularly interested in, but what I do know about is the image. I do know about why certain images work and why they don't work, why very few photographs and very few paintings are actually art, and the vast majority are most certainly not art. And it's interesting, this, the old question is photography an art form? Well, is painting an art form? Is writing an art form? And the obvious answer is it depends who's doing it. You can get your uncle or your auntie to do a painting, and is that painting art? Well, of course not. It takes an artist to make art, and whether that artist is a photographer, painter, composer, graphic designer, it doesn't make any difference. It's the person that makes the art, not the form. So in photography too, there are millions. Never before in human history has there been so many images than there is right now. We're just saturated with them, oversaturated with them. But very few actually have the ability to change your life. And that's what I want this channel to explore. I haven't got any easy answers. but I think I'm well equipped to explore the questions which all those commercial photographers don't have with respect. I'm also interested in the philosophic, the theoretical aspects of photography. I never hear anybody mention, or talk about Susan Sontag on photography, or Roland Barthes, or John Berger. Very, very important writers on photography. So I'll be discussing that, I hope. And also looking at photographs and looking at the great photographers and some of the great images done over the last 100 years or so, and try to analyse why they're so good. I'd also like to look at some terrible images and explore why they are terrible. I do have a technical challenge, let's say. I've only got one camera, which is the Canon 550D, the venerable Canon 550D. So I can't do that thing that a lot of people do. I can't film myself working, or I can't film myself taking a photograph because I need the camera to film. So, I mean, that might change, but initially there'll be a lot of this. There'll be a lot of the camera pointed at me, or hopefully not at me, at what I'm talking about, whether it's images or particular landscape. I'm mainly, what would I call myself? When people ask me, I say, oh yeah, I take photographs of landscape, but my idea of landscape is probably not the same as yours. I actually dislike what most people regard as landscape photography. That is the big epic photograph of the big mountain scene with a sunrise and the sun just appearing over the mountain, and everything is bathed in this orange light. Yeah, I hate all of that. It's boring, it's kitsch, and it's very, very kind of conventional, picture postcard, picturesque way of looking at the world. A couple of my heroes, for example, is Faye Godwin and another British photographer, Raymond Moore. And somebody I heard recently describe Raymond Moore's work as raising the mundane to a state of grace. And I think that's wonderful, raising the mundane to a state of grace. I don't think you need to travel the world to take a good landscape photograph. You don't need to take photographs of the northern lights in Iceland. You don't need to travel to the deserts of Namibia. You don't need to go to the Great Wall of China or Peru or any of these. I mean, it's great to travel, of course, and it's great to take photographs. But I tend to think, what interests me more is what's about us here and now, this room. If you can take a great photograph without leaving the confines of your own bed, that's interesting. Whereas any idiot can take a photograph of a sunrise or a sunset. All you need is a good Ordnance Survey map with all the beauty spots marked on it. You need patience, because you need to go to those beauty spots, and you may need to camp out for a few days in order to get the effect that you're looking for, to get the scene, to get the sun just right. But it takes very little creativity, in fact. It takes, yeah, you just need persistence, and you need technical knowledge, of course. You need some energy to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walk up a mountain. But ultimately, I find those types of photographs deeply boring. Whereas photographs of a street corner, or there's a famous. I was just looking at Walker Evans a few days ago, and there's that great photograph he took, one of his late Polaroids, of a gutter, and in the gutter there's crushed beer can ring pulls, and it's such a beautiful image. And Faye Godwin and Raymond Moore, they took photographs of trash cans and plastic bags and things like that, which a lot of people might find pretentious and boring. And if so, yeah, this channel is not for you. And also, this channel is not for you if you're one of those people that say, well, that's just your opinion, and what do you know about anything, and my opinion is as good as your opinion, and don't be such an arse. Yeah, I do think my opinion is better than most people's when it comes to things visual. I'm 55 years old. As I say, I've been saturated with drawings and paintings and photographs all my working life. That's what I've done. That's what I do. And if you're ill, you go to a doctor. If your car breaks down, you go to a mechanic. So all opinion isn't the same, because if you have a problem with your plumbing, you don't ask your next door neighbour, unless they're a plumber. You get expert advice, right? Well, I think I do qualify as an expert on things visual. But on the other hand, I keep an open mind, and I'd like to explore why, as I say, why some images work and some don't. And yeah, it should be, well, I hope it will be interesting, not only for you, but for me too.